Yeah, memories of that event in 2014 may just rear their ugly head this weekend, where Liverpool host Chelsea once again in the Premier League. Matt, will that still be in their minds, do you think?
I don't think so. I don't think it's. I think it's a distant memory. I think, you know, the need and the desire for Liverpool to win the Premier League is a big thing. I'm sure that's in their minds. But failure and you know, slip-ups or anything like that, I don't think is part of the psychology or the mentality of the Liverpool team or the manager. I think they're very focused on what they want to do. I think they're high intensity. I think he's got a real good balance this season on the energy. They look relatively fresh given the amount of games they've played at such an intense pace, and you know, I think they're in good shape.
What about Chelsea? Because that was obviously a big win for them that day, but do you think any of their players will be thinking this is our chance to derail Liverpool once again?
No, I think Chelsea will be focused on trying to qualify for the top four, and perhaps previous history at Anfield might come into play for the players. But beyond that, I think it's just about staying on top of what their ambitions are at this
Isn't
time.
that the great thing about this Premier League at the moment? I think it's that, because you can look at all these head-to-heads in big areas and you think, well, they just want to... No, each team's got their own individual goal that
it's
they
like
really need to go and
three mini-leagues
succeed.
this year. It feels like there's the top half, at the middle of the table that's battling for seventh, and then those looking to remain in the Premier League. But I think it's had a knock-on effect with Europe. I think the quality of performances from teams in all competition, there's a reason why our teams are in the final stages. I think the Premier League is the reason for that.
Emma, you mentioned recent history at Anfield for Chelsea in particular. It's actually quite a positive one. Have a little look at this. Last 8 results, this is across all competitions, dating back to 2013 at Anfield. Chelsea are unbeaten. Now, when you look at that and you're a Chelsea fan, I imagine that'll go down quite well. What is it about Chelsea in general? They go to Anfield and get results. I
have absolutely no idea, to be honest. Like, why? I think, you know, certain teams have those kind of grounds or an aura. I mean, if I look at some of the times that they've played there, they've been key matches. That one is a great example of the pressures was all on Liverpool at that moment, and Chelsea came in and played their game and did it. But I think it's very hard to pinpoint one reason why their success has been so good at Anfield.
No, absolutely. But there weren't any wins in there, I noticed, in all of that. So I think, you know, Chelsea will be concentrating on trying to win the game. I think the difference for Liverpool this time around, I'm sure Liverpool fans won't appreciate me saying this, but I think there is something, as a saving grace to it. I think the luck is with Liverpool this year. And I think that if they continue, yes, they produce top performances, but take the Tottenham performance. I know some would argue that Van Dijk's defending in a 1v2 situation was outstanding, but they're getting goals in key moments. Yes, they're applying pressure, but it's going in the back of the net for them, and I feel that this is Liverpool's year.
All right, if they're going to do it, they have to beat these, or at least get good results out of these remaining fixtures. Let's have a little look at their run-in. Chelsea, of course, that we just mentioned, at home this weekend, and they go away to Cardiff, and they've got Huddersfield at home, away to Newcastle, and the last game of the season in the Premier League is Wolves. And sandwiched in there, the 30th of April, is the semi-final in the Champions League, the first leg, if they beat Porto. And, of course, the second leg is before that on the 17th, and that is away. So it's actually can be quite congested, not as congested as Manchester City's. But when you look at those fixtures, do you think that actually they are all winnable games? Are there any games that you see them dropping points in?
No, I think they can win them all. I think it's a really good run-in for Liverpool. And, you know, we were saying earlier about the impact of the Champions League is going to have on Manchester City and Liverpool. And what's more important to either club? I think it's a really interesting because, you know, Liverpool have got a great history in the European Cup and have won it and made 2 finals quite recently and are fully established on the map as a top European club. But they haven't won a domestic title.
Well, you can see it in the fan base. Every time Liverpool score in the Premier League, the fans are willing them on to their first title, and I agree wholeheartedly. Man City's schedule is much tougher, I think, than Liverpool's. I think Liverpool will win their remaining Premier League games, and yes, they require Man City to drop points, but I think the Manchester derby will play a telling part in where the league title goes this year. and I think it will end up in Anfield.
We're going to come and have a little look at Manchester City's schedule in a moment, and like I said, it is extremely busy. But just going back to Liverpool for a second, and the players at the moment that are key to them winning games and doing so well in the Premier League this season. Henderson sometimes he can get a rough ride from fans, actually, but what he's doing at the moment is quite significant, and going to Klopp and saying he wants to play a more advanced role. What did you think of that when that came out?
Well, I think that, you know, from the outside, you know, I think him and Klopp have had, you know, a pretty interesting relationship. Yeah. And I think that Henderson's in a position where if he feels a certain way, he's not shy in letting the manager know, and vice versa. And it's been a little bit turbulent at times, not necessarily in an unhealthy way, but I think that they're quite openly might critique each other, or you can see by their body language or how they gesture that they're not happy with something. But I think that's, you know, that is also a part of introducing another defensive midfield player into the club as well, who's done very, very well in a holding midfield player. I can't remember his name now. Fabinho. And I think that to bring him in and be able to play that role is just allowing Henderson to maybe play a little bit higher up the pitch, and at times it's worked.
And especially playing to his strengths. He is a player that likes to arrive into the box late, and he's got the experience. He's certainly, you know, I think got the character to drive the team on. And personally, I think, and I hope not all my players are listening to this as I say this, but you want your players to be in a position to challenge you about certain things.
He's the captain.
Yeah,
he's the club captain.
He's driving the standards there, and if he thinks that something that he can do that can drive his team towards winning, I think it's important to have that conversation with your manager. How you then manage that and play that out, that's open for conversation. I think that the public sort of perception of what that relationship might be is just, for me, two purely passionate people who are trying to get Liverpool to the same point.
Do you have that often, players coming to you and suggesting that they'd want to play a slightly different role?
Well, I think sometimes you can get into conversations with them if they're unhappy about the role that they're playing, and they might they'll present a valid argument for that. And sometimes it's the other way around. They might come in and say, I've watched this game and I think the space to be exploited is here. I think it's important we do these things. But I think that two-way interaction is absolutely crucial, because the players play the game, and ultimately to carry out a game plan, they have to buy into that. To buy into that, they have to be a part of that. So, but you have to accept the reciprocal process that comes with that. You can't be dictatorial or authoritarian about it. But don't get me wrong, there'll be moments you say, shut up and just do the job I've asked you to do. Yeah. But equally, I think you have to be open to the conversation.
But that is OK. That's not necessarily a negative thing. But, you know, it's a high-pressure, intense environment. People are going to have cross words. There's going to be a fallout from time to time. Yeah. It's just how you repair that. As long as you have respect for that person, yeah. I think that's what it comes down to. Whether or not you respect how they go about their job, who they are as a person, then you're free to air your views, how you feel it, as long as it's in a respectful
And you've got
way.
to listen to the players. The players see and feel things from the pitch that are transferring information across the right, whether that's to get into an opponent's head, whether that's to exploit a weakness, whether that's to play to their strengths. That's all part of getting a team towards a win.
OK, let's focus on Manchester City then, and the damage potentially that was done losing in the Champions League to Spurs. Do you think there has been any damage, any lasting damage, or can they bounce back?
No, I think if out of all of their games, if you're going to lose one, that was the one. That was the one. It was an away match, it was 1-0, and they've got an opportunity to go home and turn it around. So it's not like losing a Premier League game. You can't get those points back. It's done, it's gone.
I think it's so difficult on the back of an FA Cup semi-final to play your strongest 11 again. You know, yes, there's 2 days. In fact, there's 2 days recovery. That's really tight to then go again, play in Tottenham's new stadium. And I agree with you, it's 2 legs. The tie isn't over. So if you're going to lose one of those 3 games against Spurs, you lose that one.
But what you said there, that is the story of Manchester City, the rest of Manchester City's season, though, isn't it? It is play a big game, rest 2 or 3 days. Play another big game, rest 2 or 3 days. That is literally
and if they win
the next
the
4 or 5 weeks for them.
That will be the most unbelievable achievement to date, because of the lack of recovery in between. And they have the quality, no doubt, but it's the mental recovery. It's not just physical. You have to recover from the highs of winning or the lows of losing and get yourself going.
And it really is at this stage of the season where going so well in the League Cup really starts to hit them, because when they play Manchester United, I think Liverpool are on an 7 or an 8 day break. They don't have a midweek game that week, I think it is. And it's those little differences that are just massive at this stage of the season. Do
you want to have a look at their fixtures?
Yeah.
We'll see how busy it is going to get for Manchester City. So what we have on here is the Premier League fixtures. So this isn't even including Champions League and also the FA Cup final as well. So we go Palace away on the 14th. And then we go Spurs at home. This is the second leg of the Champions League in the quarter-final. Then 3 days later, it's Spurs at home again in the Premier League. And then 4 days later, it's Manchester United away, the Manchester United derby. And, of course, last season, the last time this happened at the Etihad was when they almost won it at their own stadium, but Manchester United came out in the second half and beat them. Then we go 28th of April, 4 days later, it's Burnley away. We know it can be really difficult. Then on Tuesday the 30th, just 2 days break between those two, it's the Champions League semi-final leg one, if they make it through to that one. Then on the 4th of May, it's Leicester at home. The 7th of May is the second semi-final of the Champions League, the second leg, if they make it through to that one. And then on the 12th of May, it's Brighton away, followed by the FA Cup final on the 19th of May, followed by the Champions League final on the 26th of May. So if they are going to go for the quadruple, that is how their schedule will look. And I tell you what, I'm breathless just saying it. I don't know how they're going to get through that. But like you say, they've got a big enough squad. They rotate a lot. And actually, on the subject of rotating, before we move on from this, we must talk about no Sano, no Kevin De Bruyne in the game against Spurs. And actually, for the first time in a long time, Pep got some criticism for that.
Well, I mean, the guy on the right wing's worth 50 or 60 million pounds. The guy inside
is he performing, Maris? Is he performing to the level that they would expect for 60 million?
You know, it's always difficult when you don't get a regular run in the team to get the type of performance that fans expect from players that do have a run in the side. I always think they draw the short straw. That being said, Sane and De Bruyne are two huge players. In fact, not just them two. For me, the bigger loss was Bernardo Silva midweek. I thought that was a significant loss to City. But you look at April 17th, Tottenham at home, play them again 3-4 days later. Let me tell you, playing the same team twice in 4 days, really, really tough. I know we've done it a lot with Man City. They often become real stalemates, so I think that's tricky to get a result. Oh, and then they've got to play the Manchester derby. I think the season is going to be defined around those three results. And could they progress in the Champions League and lose to Manchester United in the league? I think, you know, that for me is the difficult conundrum. Though it's no foregone conclusion with the Champions League, regardless of the players left out, because Tottenham still have a 1-0 lead to defend.
Ilkay Gundogan had some interesting comments. He said that they weren't brave enough, they made a lot of simple mistakes. He talks about them being nervous in important Champions League games. And in reference to the Aguero penalty that was saved, he said that if they had scored that, would have taken Tottenham apart, but it set them back too much, he thinks. He's very open and very honest there. Is that a slight insight into a team that actually we don't look at generally as being nervous in many situations at all?
Well, I think, it boils down to this European thing, because, you know, as Liverpool are in the Premier League, I feel that Manchester City need a European title. They need a Champions League title to keep establish themselves and to keep building the club. And, you know, it's something that they haven't done. So all of a sudden, the pressure is a little bit more. It just ramps up a little bit, and the need and the desire to go and capture that trophy becomes more intense than anything, than ever. So I think that's what he's referring to.
But don't you think it's a little disrespectful to Tottenham and Pochettino and his tactics? Because I thought Spurs played 4 at the back with 3 in front, then a 2, then a 1, congested centrally, made it really, really difficult. They had 2 low liers in midfield, Man City, and they couldn't get the likes of David Silva into the game. Really, really struggled. I thought it was an outstanding performance, not just from Tottenham, but from Pochettino. And that's why I think it's no foregone conclusion, because Tottenham have an outstanding manager. And they're going to have to go there, not concede early, something Manchester City do very well, score goals early. And had the penalty gone in, yes, may have been a different outcome.
I think that's the key. The rest of it, for me, Spurs played a brilliant game.
Not scoring early, or not scoring that opportunity.
That opportunity goes in, it completely it changes Spurs' completely. You know, that they have to then assess themselves. Perhaps he would have tweaked something.
I've got to admit, I think Guardiola does get nervous around the Champions League. It's a competition he wants to win for his club. And do I think the team are a little cagier? Yes, I do. I think there is something that isn't... It is a different competition, and you think about, you know, Man City in the Premier League being a little more swashbuckling and they'll commit numbers forward. They played with too low in midfield in this game. Yeah. And it's very unlike him.
But you think he feels that about every club he's played for until he wins it? You think he has an edginess about him, or just because Manchester City haven't won it?
You know what? I can only
say
this: managing a team in this competition is so special, and it means so much, and you put a lot of energy into that. And so I think for him, one of the worst draws he could get, I think, was facing a Premier League team in this stage of the competition. I mean, they got Porto or Ajax. We'd be talking about it differently. But I think he really respects Tottenham and Poch. Maybe too much so. But I also think they underplayed what it would be like going into that new stadium, because that's difficult for any team. And I think, you know, at the Etihad, it's a different story, different game. With their strongest players in the team, you know, I think that, you know, it would be a different situation.
We've now got to go into a game this weekend against Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park. And although Crystal Palace aren't necessarily very strong at home this season, they are one of the few teams that managed to get something out of Manchester City. They beat them in the league this year. The last time before that was a draw as well. Which way do you see it going? Well,
I think the main reason why Crystal Palace are dangerous at the moment is because they're probably playing with a bit of freedom right now. Because, you know, their league season's near enough over. They're safe, really, and they're not going to push on and, you know, massively achieve anything above either. So it can go one of two ways. The players can either sign off a little bit, or they can play with total freedom and express themselves, and they'll want to do that, I think. Against Manchester City, they will want to show how good they are, and I think that can be a dangerous match for Manchester City.
OK.